12-year-old Malik sat quietly beside his mother, Tamara, in the back row of the courtroom, legs swinging above the floor, eyes sharp and unblinking. He clutched a worn legal pad filled with handwritten notes, terms like tenancy rights and due process scrawled in a child's determined hand. His mother's eyes were tired, more tired than he'd ever seen them. As she stared at the front of the courtroom where the landlord's smug attorney shuffled his papers, preparing to evict them. For months, Tamara had worked 3 jobs trying to make rent on their small apartment after her hours were cut. Still, they'd fallen behind. And now the landlord, Mr. Jacobs, a man who owned half the block, wanted them gone. Malik had heard him say once, "I don't want trash like that in my buildings." His words stung deep. The court buzzed softly with murmurs. Tamara's court-appointed attorney was nowhere to be found. She looked around nervously, whispering, "I don't know what to do, baby." Malik tugged her sleeve gently. "Let me speak," he whispered. "Please, Mama. I know what to say." Before she could protest, the bailiff called her name. Tamara West versus Jacobs, Holdings. As Tamara stood, Malik rose with her, clutching his notepad and stepping forward. Whispers spread like wildfire when the judge, an elderly man with a stern but curious face, noticed the boy beside her. "Ma'am, where is your attorney?" he asked. Tamara opened her mouth to explain, but Malik stepped forward. "Your Honor," he said, voice steady and clear. "My name is Malik West, and I'm representing my mom today." The room went dead silent. The judge leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "Son, are you telling me you intend to speak on her behalf?" "Yes, sir," Malik replied. "Our lawyer didn't show, but I know her case. I studied the lease, the notices, and I know what the law says." The judge blinked in disbelief, then slowly nodded. "Very well. Proceed, Mr. West." As Malik began speaking, laying out the facts with the poise and clarity of someone far beyond his years, the courtroom froze. Not in laughter, but in awe. Malik adjusted the notepad in his small hands and cleared his throat, stepping closer to the bench. His voice was soft, but unwavering. "Your Honor," he began, "the lease agreement my mother signed states that the landlord must give a written notice of eviction 30 days before action. We received only 10 days' notice, and that violates Section 1946.1 of the California Civil Code." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Tamara stared at her son, stunned. She hadn't taught him any of this. He had researched it himself, staying up late after finishing homework, watching legal videos on YouTube, checking laws at the public library while she worked double shifts, all because he didn't want to see her cry anymore. The landlord's attorney chuckled condescendingly. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. He's a child, not a lawyer." But the judge held up a hand, silencing the room. "Let the boy finish." Malik pointed at the stack of papers in his folder. "Here are the rent receipts we have. My mom paid partial rent each month. The landlord refused to accept it and then tacked on late fees, which made it impossible for us to catch up. That's called a constructive eviction, when a landlord creates conditions to force a tenant out." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You know a lot for someone your age." "I had to, sir," Malik said, his voice cracking just slightly. "My mom's been working nonstop to take care of me. She never complains. She deserves a chance." The judge leaned back in his chair, clearly moved. Tamara's eyes brimmed with tears, not of shame or sadness, but pride. Every single person in that courtroom, from the stenographer to the bailiff, was now silent, watching this brave, young boy deliver his mother's defense with more dignity than most adults ever could. Malik finished his statement with a quiet but powerful line, "We're not asking for pity. We're asking for fairness. My mom's not a bad tenant. She just needed more time." For a long moment, the judge said nothing. Then he looked over at the landlord's attorney. "Do you have a response?" he asked. The attorney floundered. "Well, Your Honor, this is highly irregular." "Irregular," the judge said slowly, "doesn't mean wrong." He looked back at Malik, then at Tamara. "Court will recess for 10 minutes while I review the documentation." As the gavel came down, Malik exhaled and finally turned to his mother. She knelt down and hugged him tightly, whispering, "You just did something unbelievable, baby. I've never been so proud." The courtroom buzzed with a low murmur as people whispered about what they had just witnessed. A child, no more than 10, had presented a legal case with clarity, confidence, and compassion. Even the bailiff shook his head in disbelief, glancing over at Malik, who sat quietly next to his mother. His legs dangled from the seat, his sneakers barely touching the floor. But there was no doubt now, this little boy had shaken the entire room. Tamara gripped his hand, her eyes red from tears. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "you've already won." When the judge returned, the courtroom immediately fell silent. He took his seat with a solemn expression, flipping through Malik's carefully organized documents once more. Then he looked up and addressed the court. "This court has reviewed the submitted evidence and relevant statutes," he began. "And while I have presided over many eviction cases, I have never seen one presented like this." His eyes landed on Malik. "You've cited the law correctly. The landlord violated procedural requirements under state housing codes. Furthermore, the acceptance and refusal of partial rent complicates the timeline of default." The landlord's attorney shifted uncomfortably. Given these facts, the judge continued, "The court finds the eviction notice invalid. The tenant, Ms. Tamara Willis, is granted an additional 60 days to settle her account or seek housing assistance without removal." He paused, his gaze softening. "This court also encourages the landlord to enter mediation rather than pursue further legal action." Gasps of relief and quiet applause echoed from the back rows. Tamara clutched her chest and let out a sob she had been holding for days. Malik looked stunned for a moment, then turned to his mother, a proud grin slowly stretching across his face. But before they could leave, the judge tapped his gavel gently once more. "One last thing," he said. "Young man, what's your name?" "Malik Willis, Your Honor." "Well, Mr. Willis, I don't know what you plan to be when you grow up, but if today was any indication, this country may one day call you Your Honor too." Laughter and applause broke out again, and this time Malik smiled wider. He had spoken not just for his mother, but for every child watching their parents struggle against unfair odds. Today, the system had listened, and for once, justice had spoken in a child's voice. The next morning, the Willis household was still wrapped in disbelief. The tension that had weighed heavily on their hearts was finally gone. Tamara had slept soundly for the first time in weeks, waking up to find Malik already dressed, pouring cereal like it was any normal day. But there was nothing normal about what he had accomplished. Tamara scrolled through her phone, stunned by the messages flooding in. A video of Malik's courtroom speech had gone viral overnight. Some courtroom observer had posted it to social media, and now it had been viewed over 2 million times. Comments poured in, "This kid is brilliant. Give that boy a scholarship. A future Supreme Court justice." Just as Malik reached for the milk, a knock echoed from the front door. Tamara opened it cautiously and froze. Standing there was a sharply dressed black woman with a warm smile and a large leather briefcase. Behind her stood 2 news reporters, a camera operator, and a man in a navy blue suit with a city council badge. "Good morning," the woman said gently. "My name is Angela Parker. I'm a civil rights attorney, and I represent a foundation that wants to meet Malik." Tamara blinked, stunned. "What foundation?" "The Harriet Justice Initiative. We provide scholarships and mentorship to young legal minds from underserved communities. And after seeing Malik's video, our board voted unanimously at midnight. I might add that he's someone we want to invest in." Before Tamara could respond, the man in the suit stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm Councilman Bryant. I also came to congratulate you. The city has reviewed your landlord's record. Turns out, yours wasn't the first questionable eviction. An investigation is being opened, and you may be entitled to compensation." Malik peeked around his mother, eyes wide. "Wait, like money?" Angela smiled. "Money, support, and something even more powerful, a seat at the table. And we want you at that table, Malik." The camera lights clicked on as the reporter began a live segment, filming the young boy who had changed the course of not only his family's future, but possibly the city's housing policies too. Tamara's eyes welled up as she hugged her son tightly. He wasn't just a boy who'd read books in the dark to help his mom. He was now a symbol, proof that when children are empowered, they can shake the very pillars of justice. Weeks had passed, but the impact Malik had made still echoed through the city. His story had reached national news. Invitations poured in, interviews, podcasts, educational features. One headline read, "The 10-year-old who reminded America what justice looks like." But for Malik, none of that mattered more than seeing his mother smile again without pain behind it. Their former landlord had been charged with housing discrimination and fraudulent eviction practices. The apartment Malik and his mother had been kicked out of, it now sat empty, sealed off as part of a city investigation. Malik didn't ask for revenge, he had only wanted fairness. But justice, it seemed, had finally caught up. Angela Parker had become a mentor to both Malik and Tamara. With her legal connections, she helped Tamara enroll in a career reentry program. "You stood tall, raising him alone," Angela had told her. "Now it's your turn to stand for yourself." Tamara smiled at that. For the first time in years, she felt like more than just a struggling mother. She felt like a woman with a future. Malik, meanwhile, started attending weekend pre-law workshops at a local university. The students there, some twice his age, listened intently as he spoke about his courtroom experience. Professors even joked that he had more confidence than half their law students. And perhaps he did, because Malik wasn't chasing attention, he was chasing change. Then came the day he was invited to speak at the Juvenile Justice Reform Summit. As he stood on stage, looking out over a packed auditorium filled with lawyers, judges, and activists, Malik didn't read from prepared notes. He spoke from his heart. "My mom was scared, but I wasn't. I knew the law didn't say poor people don't matter. I knew you don't need a fancy degree to know what's right. You just need to love someone enough to stand up for them." The audience rose to their feet. Some clapped, some wept. Afterward, a judge approached Malik quietly and said, "I've been wearing these robes for 30 years, son, and I've never been taught a lesson like the one you gave me that day." Malik smiled, then walked back to his mother, slipping his small hand into hers. In the eyes of the world, he was a viral sensation, a prodigy, a hero. But to Tamara, he was simply her son, the brave little boy who stood when she couldn't, spoke when she cried, and reminded the world that justice, at its core, is love in action.